Okay, we're recording now, and yeah, welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
Do you guys can we do just a minute, little tuning exercise, and I'll lead this one, but other weeks I'd love for others to do it. I think it's a great way to connect the vibe before we get started. So we can put our hands in the air, and we inhale when we put our hands in the air, and then exhale. And we'll do that 30 times. And we can put our hands on our heart and take 30 seconds to feel the gratitude for something very simple, being alive, our heart beating. And slowly opening our eyes. And look at the 3 other, and now 4 with Jorge arriving. The 4
Nice.
and in the Zoom call, and feel the gratitude to have other like-hearted, like-minded people you can co-create with, and take 20 seconds to feel that gratitude. Thank you, guys, and welcome, Jorge. So, Jorge, welcome. Maybe and you, I mean, I wasn't there last week, so I'm keen to see what's in the flow. And today we have Josh, so that's an opportunity to go deeper into practically, how we implement the AZPO model for the light leaders. We were saying there's more general education that people can go through, and we can do this call like really more advanced and specific to move forward. But then I wasn't there last week, so let's see also what would be additional to that in the flow of things we want to talk about this week.
Yeah, everything we talked about last week is essentially us initiating a master plan without necessarily being 100% clear on what creating a master plan looks like in the context of being an AZPO. Like Josh, so that you're clear, and also Alex, we were talking about like our mission, our vision, our ideal avatar, what it is that we want to offer the world, how it is we want to offer that to the world, and then what we need to do as a unit to be able to make that offer in the most productive fashion possible. Which in many ways is establishing a master plan, but we're doing it through a framework of knowledge that integrated the overarching AZPO structure. So I think that we're moving in that direction, Josh, of the master plan, but not yet doing it like firmly grounded in the assertion of AZPO.
Yeah, I think we can simply, you guys have already been through the proposal process. We can literally break down the master plan into sections and just work on one at a time. And you guys can write something up. We can modify it, pass it to the team. Anyone can write up a piece. I can help you, guide you through each part.
Cool. Is there anything, Jorge or Ryan, you guys wanted to add to that you took away from last week's call for Alex to get up to speed?
Not from me, no.
Yeah, not for the time being. I'm curious just to hear more about the AZPO, so rather take some time to listen in.
Okay, cool. So then, Alex, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, so then Josh, if you could download us on, I mean, we know roughly what an AZPO is, so maybe we don't need to go too deep into that, but download us on what an AZPO is, and then let's talk about how creating a master plan integrates and syncs up with that in a way that we can move forward into becoming an AZPO.
Yeah, and I'll try to, how about this? I'll try to keep short, concise answers, and then you guys just throw some questions at me. Does that work? That's what me and Alex talked about. Okay. So yeah, the master plan will help guide you for the next few years or for the lifetime, really, to be honest with you. And you're going to make it by consensus. You're going to update it by consensus. Because it's something you're all agreeing on. It's like a house you're building together, right? And it's based on non-ownership. So you're planning out how to use the rooms, how to access it. If it doesn't have enough space for everyone in the beginning, how do you access it? How's distribution work? How do you act? What are you using it for? The space that you're creating. And it will link once you make, once that profit model grows and it turns into a funding pool, an AZPO funding pool, you can link into other AZPOs in a chosen ecosystem. Right now, that ecosystem will have a set of values and you guys will have a set of values, or light leaders, we will. And so those values as the decision resolution methodology actually do come into effect if we get to a decision that we can't tackle, we can't come up to a consensus, or we can't do both. We will use the values in the value decision model to resolve the issue and come up with a solution that fits the values of. So values are important. And we can create those. We've got templates and we've got people that have done years of work on values themselves.
So what I'm picking up from that is that once the master plan is in place, if there's ever like confusion around opposing opinions, both people put their hands up and say, like, we revert our decision to the master plan.
No.
If resolution can't be found, then the resolution is decided by the master plan that we all agreed on.
Well, every decision in a way is decided by the master plan because there's an agreement field that's the scope, like, do or do not, use soap that has this chemical in it, right? Those are specific agreements. So if that plan or that proposal does something that's outside of the agreement field, then it's a no-go. It's not going to be part of that container, part of that society, part of that group, part of that company. Okay, depending on what that master plan is, and the boundaries.
Is the agreement field part of the master plan?
The agreement fields will be a part of the master plan. So as the chart that Ryan sent us, there's agreement fields, I believe, in that one. If not, we'll add them in there. I believe that there was.
And there are multiple different kinds of agreement fields, guys, just so you know, like the master plan will be an agreement field for all of Lightleaders Mastermind, but then we have like subsection agreement fields as well. What's the exact terminology you use, Josh? Like space agreements and.
Yeah, there's a lot of different forms of agreements. There's access agreements, space agreements. There's a universal agreement, something that everyone would want to agree on, anyone that you would want to come across for the future of your life, like in your society. What kind of agreements would what kind of culture do you want to interact with? Do you want people that are manipulating and stealing, or do you want to not encounter that in your field at all for anyone in any AZPO that you're interacting with?
Right. So then as we, as individuals, agree to these agreement fields, we're in one like synonymous sense of terminology, we're agreeing to the rules of this space.
Yeah, so there's some that are overarching and they're not very many. They're meant to be very loose. All the ones that have to do with your personal choices are your personal choices. If they're affecting others or they're in a space where you've agreed to, like, let's say, have a certain diet because you stand for health, for example, then those are space agreements. Because, like, if you're online with someone, it just doesn't matter, consent culture, touching someone. You don't have to make that with people all around the world. You just have to align with those that you're potentially touching, for example.
Okay. That makes sense.
Based on where we are with the light leaders, what kind of timing do you see as having? I mean, the few things I see is here having a master plan and agreements that people can opt in, and that will help make every decision, and then a decision making process also. I know you talk about the ACT process, and I would love to go towards that personally as soon as possible, as long as it's realistic. So what you see a bit where we are. What do you see in terms of timelines?
If you would like, so the question specifically was, did you want me to show you some of the proposal process or the ACT, or did you, or you on timelines?
No, I was more thinking in your head. Do you think we could have a master plan, next week, and everyone agreeing to it like in 2 weeks, and then enforce the ACT process, the proposal process for new decisions in 3 weeks, for example, rather than at the moment it's still just us making like this and having some kind of structure that we can show so others can scale.
Yeah, I would say implementing it versus enforcing it. I think the whole system's based on non-force, right? So if we agree, then we put our energy in. If we don't, this is a non-debt system. So you're never in debt. So you're always reciprocating in real time, so that no one ever feels weird by moving around the system or stepping out, coming back in. We want to keep it a non-debt system. So your money and decisions are completely separate. If you put something in as a gift, you put it in as a gift. You put it in as a loan, you put it in as a loan. Even gifts we look at as instead of giving, because there's still an energy. I gave you something, and you're returning it to the collective commons. We've taken everything into the private domain. So yeah, I think logically within, as soon as we could literally sit down and potentially write up a draft of a master plan, probably, because we already have templates and stuff written. We could potentially even just sit down for a few hours, I would say, and potentially even write up a draft that's actually professional quality, if depending on alignment of what's already there, what needs to be changed, and how good of a wordsmith the person that I'm sitting down with is.
I wanted to ask all at once. Yeah. I wanted to ask on the malleability of the universal field of agreements. So, for example, we currently have, let's say, 33 members in the Light Leaders tribe. Let's assume that we go ahead with this implementation that Alex suggested. Let's say over 2-3 weeks, and 25 members of the 33 are in complete agreement of this universal field of agreements. Now, the other 8 that remain, let's say maybe they haven't even had a chance to input or review or whatever, but we want to go ahead, the 8 remaining want to go ahead and review the other 25. And let's say they had some new agreements that we would actually like to include in. So this is a simple example, but what's the malleability of the universal agreement field? Is that easy and simple to change, or will we have to do the whole process again?
You can do agreement by agreement. So they have a suggestion, they write it down. We even have a yearly, we do it on January 2nd. And we have about 60 people that are in the universal field. The declaration of agreements that actually took us about 2 or 3 years, weekly meetings, 40 people to build. Now we can do it quicker, but we have a meeting every January 2nd to update it, and we can also host a meeting to update it, randomly if we have the need to do that. Yeah, someone can make a suggestion, go over it, but it does take consensus because everyone's agreed already. They've already said, yes, we want the walls brown, we want everything earth tone. It's already been built, or you're starting to build it and someone says, no, I want something different. And everyone else has already agreed. So, yes, they can get it changed, but they need everyone to agree in that case.
I see. Okay. And on the back of that, then, just take it into a bit more complex example. Have you tested it for a 30 sigma event? So a very, very rare event. For instance, in the case of if we have this model and some virus hits the entire community where we've adopted this model, and there's this black swan event, how does the AZPO model fare with these left field events, which could throw everyone's agreement fields individual out of whack potentially? How would that sort of play out?
I think it's pretty easy. I mean, I think that, literally you're in or out of an agreement field. So you can pause the agreement. I mean, if you go out of town and you have a sustainable futuristic city and you're living in it and you're in these agreement fields, and then you leave to, the old paradigm, then you're out of that agreement field. So if a virus hit, or whatever, some disaster hits, an earthquake, I don't know, you're going to be cleaning up. First of all, you're going to be in emergency response mode. I guess maybe give me one good thing about this is the king and queen model is out the window. So we're not waiting on someone to tell us what to do. We literally can solve problems and move forward. We already have a roadmap. We're just fulfilling that. If something drastically changes for a lot of people, then yeah, it'll affect us and we'll have to.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
Because I've been reading that really good book from Frederic Laloux that I'm sure Josh you've read too, right? Reinventing Organizations. And in the teal paradigm, one idea is that you can sometimes even go to the so-called lower level of consciousness kind of organization. And he gives an example that sometimes in emergency, you go red. So in that frame, red is like a mafia, it's like there's a boss and he does whatever the fuck he wants. That's not how we want the whole organization to be led, but part of the agreement field, at least in my sense, and then Josh, tell me if I'm wrong, but it could be, okay, we delegate to these 3 people in case of like they have some kind of power there for emergency, but they're accountable, it's not like they can. So I'm not sure exactly, but there are some organizations where they do it in a teal way. So there are examples in history, and maybe the founder at some point was like, okay, now for a week, I just enforce decision because our usual decision-making process is just not suitable for that emergency situation. With still some kind of accountability where if he does it too often, because then you can see that's what governments do. They have an emergency, they take power, and the emergency keeps dragging. So there's like balance to it. But having an open space sometimes for those more like maybe lower level of consciousness organization, but are needed for some emergencies. That's how I understood it.
Yeah, totally possible. Easy.
And we would write, as far as I understand as well, Ryan, like we can write into our master plan, into our universal agreement field, like what constitutes such an emergency. Like, if a black swan event defined as such occurs, then power is delegated to XYZ so that they can get the community through this to the other side, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And if the whole community agrees to that, then that's the protocol.
Yep.
Yeah. And if we see a problem in the future, I mean, it's all about creating solutions. We actually have baked into, it's pretty funny, we have baked into our agreement field, which could transfer and probably will transfer over to other AZPOs, is you can literally use the ACT process, the decision process, to create your own local government. So for your core team, you can create whatever you want. You can do hand signals, you can agree by, arm wrestling, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter, right? As long as you're producing results and you're interacting with the whole and communicating in the right way with everyone. And we have a default of, you can change that through the process to another, could be voting, could be anything you want that fits that scene. Maybe that specific scenario takes some other sort of sense making, or something's quicker. However, it can also always be reestablished. The ACT process can also always be reestablished and put up for motion to reestablish it if something goes wrong.
Yep, makes sense. Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And also, Ryan, like to riff off of that in a slightly different direction, like what excites me most about the AZPO, as it would directly correlate to like the vibe of Mastermind, is, as Josh said, there's no like king and queen model. It's all of us are leaders, and like all of us are taking a stand. And if at any point any one person sees something as like wrong or subject to expansion or enhancement, like we all have an equal say in bringing that to the table. It's not like you have to like climb the ladder to get to the boss to like suggest something, like. Yep,
that's right. And we all have equal, equal access. And the only thing is, a domain or a role that might, you might be the one designing something, and someone may say, hey, I want you to do it like this. And you say, I don't want to. So they would have to find another designer to design it in the way they want, and that's because the system's based on non-force. Now, if that role requires is an accountability because it's been decided by the collective that that's the way we're going to take, then somebody will have to do that, or the budget will go towards that.
Yeah.
But you can't stop. You can't stop someone from creating a solution for something, even if it's not within the company, field, and they just want to create a solution. You can't really stop them. Now, if it's something that doesn't fit, it's like out of the agreement fields, it's out of the values, then they've done it on their own work. They try to bring it in, it's not going to fit. Or maybe, but in most cases, they know what they're doing. They just build it. They don't have to ask anyone anything. It's still a proposal, and they bring it in and people say, oh, that's great. Cool, like that.
All right, so I don't know if I'm the only one who still has this concept that's kind of abstract, and I want to make it a little bit more concrete. So do we have anything yet, or are we starting with the blank canvas right now, or do we have anything as far as what this master plan is? What does it look like for us? What do we have for like the universal agreement fields? Do we have anything, or are we with a blank canvas right now?
I can send you.
Josh, you have like a template for a master plan you can show on your screen, maybe?
Yeah, I even have I have two.
To directly answer
I'll share
your
screen.
question, templates do exist. Yeah, please share your screen, Josh.
Let me find both. Here we go. Okay.
I can't see your shared screen.
There we go. All right. So this is an example of a master plan. So your intention, intention is sometimes easier for people to join. In this case, you can call it your vision, your mission, your intention, your purpose. You can add whatever you want here, but it's what's your vision? Where are you heading? What are you doing? The values, because they're important, because they go into your decision making, and your values, your principles, and your vision all match in your agreements. So they all work together, to be honest with you. I think there's still a lot of development there. This is how it fits into the ecosystem. This is an older thing, so don't worry about some of the wording in that. Your agreement fields. Okay, so we've adopted specific agreement fields in some of these cases, or we're asking people to identify certain ones for certain projects. A pool is how it's a part of onboarding and offboarding. In this case, people come in, they want to be a part of the project, and they would have to complete the required education, the badges. Maybe it's healing, self-transformation, deprogramming, whatever education might be required for them to be in alignment. Maybe they need to learn about the AZPO. Maybe they need to learn about the processes that they're going to be going through. So we usually break that down into coherency and competency. So being coherent with the team, being able to understand how to flow with everyone, and being competent to do what you need to do to interact with the new operating system. So they're in a pool, you know, saying, hey, I want to be on this team. I've got these badges that's required, and they sit there until someone says, hey, the team, in most cases, a team would like, usually it's like, hey, that whole team needs to agree on the new person. Otherwise, there could be a conflict of personality or something weird. And you're, you know, so in general, we suggest that the team, when they onboard someone, that they all are in alignment, and we have little processes. But in the end of the day, people can try whatever they want. And if it doesn't work, we'll come in and clean it up. If they're a part of an ecosystem. If they're a level 1 AZPO, they're on their own, but they could pay to have us help them if they want. So this is group formation, or
I don't understand that. What did you mean if they're level 1 AZPO, they're on their own?
Level 1s aren't part of the ecosystem, so they don't get to depend on different roles and different AZPOs that are there to basically for free give them help, because they're all helping each other. So they don't have access to that. They can pay, they can reciprocate, and, you know, give some money, you know, but they don't just get automatic help. Yeah. They're not part of an ecosystem. They're still reforming their intellectual property and all their old paradigm ownership stuff. They need to do that before they can really play in the sandbox. So this is onboarding, basically. How do we onboard? And we don't call it offboarding. We call it, I mean, I don't, it's not official yet, but relocating, you know, because people are usually just relocating to another AZPO, to another department. So, and then sometimes they relocate out of the, and in the new paradigm, it's usually temporary. You can always take a training course and come back in. There is, of course, the old paradigm laws. You know, if you do something really bad, we actually, luckily, we still have this system built that takes care of those things for us. So we don't have to really, you know, we can come to those issues when they arise, and we have a great solutionary culture to deal with any problem. So that's the best thing about this. So this identifies our circles needed to start with, our starting circles, decision making, which is easy now, but that'll be in your master plan, how you're going to make decisions. Submaster planning. This has the process because this is old. All this stuff will be in education and not in the master plan itself. So this was just a all-in-one thing. I just searched and pulled up whatever came up. Growth and splitting. So more about how circles grow and split, and, you know, and then fund distribution. So the top key characteristics that you don't want corrupt, that's going to tell you if you're new paradigm or not. When it comes to organizational model, there's the top 3 characteristics of the new paradigm. But in this case, what you need to look at is your funding distribution. You got to have the same funding distribution schema within your ecosystem. Okay, you have to have that. If you don't, then it turns very weird very quick. In a whole system, like a living body, you got to have a nice distribution. If you don't, things get off balance and doesn't work. So distribution, roles, so not people, you know, being able to flow a little bit. And then the third thing is, of course, the decision model. So you got to have clear decision way to make decisions. So we've got those two covered with the AZPO, so you don't have to worry about that.
Can I pause you there or save the Q&A to the end?
Yeah, well, let's see how far
I'll wait to the end. Sorry.
I'm at the bottom here. So yeah, so then there's fund distribution again. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, we can do Q&A. And then I have actually one other thing I'll send you guys, and it outlines the master planning process in a little, you know, little thing about it. Okay, and I can send this to you guys right now on the chat, maybe even. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So before your question, Ryan, then I'll just highlight with a template like this, Jorge, that's a direct answer to your question. And then as Alex was saying in his comment here in the chat, we already kind of got started on this. So for example, brainstorming values and mission and vision, that's part of our intention. So I can transfer the rough copy of what we have into this template. And then we'll clearly see within the template, like the next thing we need to address and how we need to work through the template. And once we have all the answers in that master plan template, then it will just be subject to edit, refinement, and solidification.
Yeah, this definitely did help. I mean, from what I got to see, it's kind of like putting together the articles of organization for a legacy, I guess, what we call LLC type organization kind of thing. And yes, I guess the next thing for me would be, because we did start a little bit on like the vision, mission, but have we talked much about what our revenue model is going to be? Like, what are we going to be, like, how are we going to be growing basically on that sense?
It's a large topic of conversation that we haven't had as a group at all. No, thus far, me and Alex have hosted 2 events, but
That's
we
actually
don't even have.
Yeah, that's actually something I'd love to bring up. Yeah.
So that could be a top priority as we get into like creating that master plan. If we wanted to talk about that first, before we talk about the other things. But to me, having the intention and the avatars and the other components are going to make talking about revenue models quite a bit easier. So I think that's part of the master plan. And to circle back, Alex, to your question about timelines, like I think that that we should relax into getting this done properly, as opposed to like trying to have a master plan in 2 weeks or something. Like I think we can get a rough draft together in the next call or 2, but like getting that really solid and like fully aligned and agreed upon is something I think that we should not necessarily rush.
I'd like also to be transparent on, so for example, you know and myself, for the work since the launch event, every week if we've worked that week, so I took last week off, for example, so not for that, but yeah, we've paid ourselves $150 per week for the work done. And we want to make sure there's like a fair reward, and it can be, at first we thought maybe more in future tokens, so we don't have as much like, you know, pressure, or we can agree if we're all more comfortable to work for free and maybe just support Yono as he needs more the financial support now. But I just want things to be transparent. If Ryan or Jorge, you start putting more time, maybe it's fair to compensate. It can be in future tokens, it can be in dollars, because I mean we did 2 events and they're profitable, and then maybe we think, okay, let's do another event because they would allow us to pay ourselves, like not something crazy, but a little bit to compensate for the time for the next 2 months. So I'm not sure, but that's also something I want to have transparency on. The rewards for people's input.
Yeah, it's fair to bring up, if the 4 of us or 5 of us, for example, are going to distribute this work evenly, then any kind of payout should be distributed evenly as well. Yeah. So maybe one of the top things within the master plan then is getting clear, at least in part, around revenue model and payout and time allocation before we dive deeper into the rest of it. That would be the first thing we talk about.
When I look at that master plan, it actually looks at all the things that we need. So yeah, I mean, totally agree. If we need more time, we take more time, but it definitely feels like a big priority to me.
And that was circling straight back to my question on the funding part of that AZPO model, right down the end, the master plan, sorry, right at the end when you had the funding. Does that, with the way it was structured and the way that it sort of the funds are redistributed back in, I'm just trying to link that. How's the bridge into the tokenomics, you know, in terms of, are we linking it to the coin in any way or the treasury? And then how does that work in terms of burning, minting, the percentage distributed to the holders, and how would that sort of play out? Because that can, I'm not sure if we adopt this master plan model, how that funding will link to the tokenomics of things.
So we need a tokenomics expert. This is actually something that we talked about yesterday because the three of us live together. And we were talking about the tokenomics, yes, is a crucial and essential part of the AZPO model, but it's also not necessarily a necessary component. Like you could theoretically run an AZPO without having a token or a tokenomic structure in place. But as we shift more into the new paradigm, it seems like more and more business models will have a token and have a tokenomic structure in place.
We're also a crypto mastermind. So, I mean, it makes sense that if you're a farming community, maybe token isn't something very important. But I feel it's been like something will do, but then.
Yeah. But hold on. I'm not saying that we're not going to have a token or a tokenomic structure. What I'm saying is that it's something currently separate from the AZPO model, but a direct plugin. And what the tokenomic structure looks like and what the percentages are and how many tokens there are and whether or not we're burning any, and all of that tokenomics is contingent upon the individual AZPO and their goal and their intention and their operating mechanisms. You know, so for us as Lightleaders Mastermind, it will be like a unique thing that we develop and create. But there's not necessarily like this is how you do it with an AZPO framework.
I understand. Yep.
Can I show you guys a graph?
Please.
Yeah, and this isn't, like he said, this is not an answer to your question. It's just something to look at and understand, like some of the options that are available with the AZPO model, with the New Earth operating system. It's because there's economies, there's more than just an organizational structure here, right? So a level 1 AZPO, like we said, they're kind of still working in the corporate way, so that we have these little triangles with this growing AZPO fund that's being directed more and more towards the profits, which go into this, right? In a level 1, they're not ready yet to organizationally shift. Level 2, this is what most people are going to be. They're interacting with fiat, and they're you know, able to potentially start to play in this resource-based system. So what the option we have is an access-based system based on help your neighbor laws and different economic models that basically support the free movement of our structures and our organizational structures to match the blueprint more of what we want. We want a free flowing, type of structure. So to do that, a lot of those structures constrain you and, you know, make you do certain things in a certain way. These don't require any structuring, these economies. So if you start to lean towards this, there's tons of advantages. So what we can talk about in the tokenomics is how these funding pools can turn into resources. So it's really about resources and access to resources. The only reason we buy resources is so that we can access them. And if we're doing that collectively and freeing this whole private domain problem that we have and this separation, then we're actually starting to create some projects together The measure of success in a consortium, for example, or a whole living system, is that you're making sense together, you're coming together, not further apart. So if that's happening, then we're winning the game. Our markers of success are working. And so as you can see in a level 2, for a level 2 access, they don't deal in any money, this type of AZPO. What they do is they have a bunch of resources that they access, and that's it. They contribute, they have agreement fields, and it all works. It's a whole living system, okay? That doesn't need to interact in the old way. And they can provide access to a level 2 AZPO, not to a level 1, and in exchange for more building of resources. And a level 2 can interact with the 1 through support and fiat exchange. Something to think about.
I love it. I think that, yeah, tokenomics is a whole separate conversation. Well, not necessarily separate, but it's its own very large conversation.
And tokenomics will probably choose what is in support of the master plan. So it's kind of the master plan that decides the token platform, the tokenomics.
And for example, Ryan, if you're knowledgeable in the space or with strong desire or passion to become so, and want to kind of spearhead the construction of our tokenomics, like that individual is still something needed. So if not, that's okay too. We'll manifest somewhere. But
I'm definitely no expert, but I'm happy to contribute where I can. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, feel free to kind of, if someone wants to take up a role and raise their hand, then you can organize your own call on. It could be like, hey, on Friday I'm doing a little mastermind call on tokenomics, for example, after you watch the Jonathan, because also in the men's group there's quite a bit happening on that side, and it doesn't have to be in the weekly call. You can do your your own call on it, and the people who want to join that conversation, they join that conversation. So that's an invitation. One is to take up role, to take a task, to organize your own calls, and see who wants to join. So that's one thing. The other thing is, regarding compensation, if you want to take a role and you want to be compensated for it, in time we want to have like more streamlined processes, but in the meantime you can make like a proposal like, hey, Jorge, for example, I'm redoing the website, this is what I'm going to achieve, and my timeline and my budget, and that's how I want to be paid for it, and in what way I want, if I want $400, is it in dollars, or is it in future token valued at the first initial launch, something like this. For example, I know you probably want to keep getting the $150. Maybe if we want to start being less centralized, maybe instead of just you and I deciding that, maybe it's like or it can be now on the call, something we all agree on. So what I'd like is, for example, next time, if I want to pay myself, or if you want to be paid, it's like there's already a more decentralized agreement process. And to make it not too complicated, it could be just on a call like now. It doesn't have to be something so hard, but I'd like to go more in the direction of that.
Yeah, we can initiate the scalable approach if we want. Like you guys are both Ryan and Jorge in Notion, yeah. So
I just did Ryan now, and Josh too.
Yeah. So the idea is to.
And similarly, if we want to do another event in Bali early December, maybe this time we put up a proposal saying that's our budget, that's what we expect in terms of number. Okay, it's going to cost 1,000 something. We'll have the videos we want to share, and we expect a revenue of this. If revenue is up to this, well, we pay ourselves a little bit. If it's more, maybe we pay ourselves more. Are you guys okay that we run that? And like this, we start decentralizing the decision model until that could be like kind of a bootstrapped way already until we have a proper master plan, act process.
I think we should start moving in that direction because that's the end goal, is to have everything operate in that way. I will also highlight that right now, like for example, if we wanted 100% approval on something and like 20 plus of the members of the mastermind are at a 0 engagement level.
No, sorry, I absolutely wasn't talking about, I was talking about us, the people who are
right, but that's what I mean. Then that also to me is part of kind of like the master plan. It's part of at least an agreement field that we're like, okay, in order for X, Y, and Z to be approved, it only needs our 5 agreements.
Well, I would say whatever we do right now that involve especially taking some of the money or that is bigger, like kind of inform the community, and then if someone has something against it, they can voice it, or at least do that.
Yeah, that's good. I just mean that like the structure of how we go about that is part of an agreement, which is part of the master plan.
Yeah.
But that can be one of the...
So what I was saying is before we have it really well done, the master plan, maybe we start as we go already doing it a little bit like as we feel it,
Yeah, and I just want to say, I mean, it's also potential that you have slight differences in the end of the day and 2 master plans, and there's kind of this split, but they both work together. It's still possible. It's not ideal, but there's also those possibilities. Maybe, there's definitely the ability to do multiple projects and have them all work together. I want to ask Jorge and Ryan, just, how do you guys feel, just the general direction here, intentions, concerns? How are you just feeling in general about
I'm super pumped to learn more, like as in more detail on the AZPO, but it definitely is in alignment with what I sort of envisioned for the group, for the tribe. So I love it. And I find it really inspiring that you spent something like 16 years, was it, that working to put this together? Yeah.
Yep.
Life
took a break from the general contractor role. Land developer.
A 16-year break.
Permanent break. I still like it. I still love building, but. And your thoughts, Jorge?
For me, like I think I'm mostly like still processing, and I need to see how this is going to evolve. But overall, like I like the concept. I like what I see. I think it's just more about us coming together and getting more clarity on everything, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So that it seems like we still have some things that we haven't really discussed fully, but I feel that overall we're all in pretty much alignment with a lot of things. It's just a matter of putting those details down on paper and starting to see it take shape, kind of thing. I guess like the one thing that I'm trying to figure out, like how it's going to work out, not just for me but for anyone else coming in, and depending on like everyone's gifts and ways that they're going to contribute to the AZPO, like how's that going to integrate? I mean, like for example, like for me, I teach gut health. I don't really monetize it, but it's a tool that we can use for this. How would that integrate? I mean, there are parts of it that are kind of monetized, mostly like through affiliate sales kind of thing. Like how would that play into like an AZPO, like income that's coming in, for me on that? Like would that be kind of like a AZPO level 1 sort of thing, where it's just kind of like my own side thing? And same thing for other people. Like if other people have their own practices, healing practices, whatever they do, how is that going to integrate with this kind of thing? That's kind of like what I'm still trying to get clarity on.
Yeah. So you can turn anything into an AZPO. My girlfriend had a spirulina organization. She was just by herself running around. And as she said, okay, let's turn this into an AZPO, opened up the door for, so it's not really a profit thing at this way, at this point anyway. Like all profits are getting re-injected at this point. It was a startup. So this allowed other people that have, oh, I got this cookie product and I got this other thing. And now, hey, can we just, build this company together, versus just her, trying to hire and hustle and do everything, So that's an example. So it's totally possible to bring something into an AZPO model that's your personal stuff and share it with the group and see who you want to mentor and take on. For example, if a village is in an AZPO village model and somebody knows how to play the stock market and make millions of dollars a year, they have the choice. They can continue to keep that to themselves. They don't get to dominate the commercial space and put their house right in the middle of the mall, right? That's still an agreement field. So there's still, we don't want people spamming and selling to us, stuff that's not collectively, understood or ran, let's say. But if they do decide to, share, then they would mentor people. And now everyone's bringing in a few million and everyone gets to thrive. They can still keep, their original technology, their original IP, and they can still have their business share as a sort of a licensing type agreement that's open for certain specific licensing agreements that we've identified, that allow the perpetual use and and then they can still continue to do what they're doing if they so choose, or they can jump all in and, see the benefits. What the consortium model, when you get like 5 different, amazing electric vehicle, for example, and they all scientists start working together, you come up with a supercar that's better. So these people will still market their old cars, but the supercar that everyone built together is going to be, the profits are going to be in the AZPO model, whereas the original technologies that are undeveloped, untransformed, that don't use collective help, that person can continue to have those markets and that income and do whatever they want with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It would be nice at some point after, I'm just seeing the chat here, to, I guess, a lot of this could be overwhelming for some people. 1, to come into the crypto space, and then 2, it could be overwhelming. So it'd be nice at some point to streamline it, and I'm happy to do that, or do like a little masterclass or something, whatever it is on this.
Yeah,
whole
that's a huge
thing.
That's a huge thing that we're talking about as well, Ryan, is like onboarding protocols, and how to make integrating into this system as seamless as possible. That's really cool that you're excited about it. I'm also super excited about that aspect. So as we get deeper into the information, that's for sure something really powerful for the whole of humanity. Like, we can use Lightleaders Mastermind and onboarding people into the mastermind as kind of like a case study, but eventually, like, every business on the planet is going to shift in this direction. And the more seamless that we can make that collective shift for the human race, the more efficient that shift is going to unfold. So, yeah.
Cool. So I'm just reading the chat here as well. The next steps. So get the master plan sorted, prioritize the agreements, and then implement those to create the master plan. So definitely, and as Jorge, it's sort of, I feel that it's a little bit up in the air, so we can kind of bring it down and ground it a bit with something concrete, I feel, in the next week or 2. So, as men, we want something tangible. We want to feel it, see it, read it. Yeah.
I have a deadline call, guys. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, and for us, we can take 5 minutes too, but as usual, I like to keep this
timely.
Yeah, for me, like those 4 steps I highlighted, please add anything if you guys see them. But my intention there was getting the Word or Google Doc that I already have created, all connect with Josh, get the template, transfer the data, and then highlight so we can see clearly where there are still gaps. But then before we dive super deep into the master plan, as I highlighted in step number 2, like if we want to talk about finances first, if we want to talk about paying the 4 of us, what are the specific agreements that we'd like to have in place before diving into the master plan? Like, what are those? And then like, let's agree on them and implement them, you know? And then once the 4 of us, possibly Raid as well, have those base structure agreements in place and are in alignment, whatever we decide that they are, then focus all of our energy on the master plan until it's.
We could either do that or make next call about roles and like rewards for it, and take the time then to go deeper into that. And in the meantime, like agree to keep paying you only, you know, and then retroactively, if we decide something else next week, we can see. That's what I feel could be a quick decision now. And
yeah,
then
up to you guys. I'm gonna continue utilizing my time to expand the rough draft of the master plan. Yeah. That's like my primary focus here, is getting that thing developing. And what you alluded to by roles and finances, Alex, is also what I meant by steps 2 and 3. Like, what are roles can be part of one of the agreements, you know, like that can be one of our agreement fields, is what are the roles. So that we could do
what we did at the logistic meetup for the community we live in yesterday, which was really cool. Because at the moment, for example, I'm the accountant and I'm not a very good accountant and I don't really like it. And I'm the one who puts up, like, for example, when I go for a week, then there's no recording of the call posted. Like a few things like this where I'd like to, you know, and maybe I keep taking them on, like it's okay, but then I want things to be more clear, you know?
Yeah, we can focus next call on roles and agreements and what we need to have in place to get into the master plan from a more structured outlook. I think that's a good use of next week's call.
Yeah, I think for roles,
and at the same time,
we'll probably also have to get very clear on like our revenue models, all the different things that we plan on doing. That way we can actually come up with the roles needed to be able to accomplish that.
Right.
So, I mean, if anyone wants to take more ownership on a task, like, okay, I'm working on, let's say the business model, for example, that's something that can be a cool role too. And that's so because the master plan needs to be divided, like we can look at, master plan, but master plan is about our values. Master plan is about how we fund. Master plan is about how we make money, like the business model. So we can also take parts of them.
Yeah, once roles are clear, we could section out the master plan development to.
Yeah, I mean, we could also work on the master plan before roles are clear. I think it's good to have clear roles, but I wouldn't use it like as a way to hold off working on the master plan.
So I'll try to, the way that I'm seeing all of this is that for now, there's like the 4 of us, maybe Raid 5. So it's one thing to define all of the roles that we'd like to see within the Lightleaders Mastermind and getting clear on those as part of the master plan. But separate from that, what we also want to do first is just figure out like what I'm going to own, what Alex is going to own, what Ryan's going to own, what Jorge's going to own for now, as we're forming the master plan, as we're the core team, like defining those roles. And then within the master plan, defining the ideal set of roles that will become the Lightleaders Mastermind. Like, there's 2 separate things, but both like roles. Does that make sense?
Makes sense now.
More like short term and long term.
Yeah. Like ideal vision, but like right now we have 4 people. So what are we doing?
So I guess, taking on a little bit more responsibility now whilst new members make the time or whatever.
And if you guys have that desire, right, which would be beautiful and amazing and super productive to the growth of the movement, then off of that, we talk about how much money we have available and how much money we're going to pay ourselves, and, you know, make it something that keeps us all engaged and fruitful, and, you know. So let's focus next week's call on that. What are the 4 of us doing? If Raid shows up, what are the 5 of us doing? How much time do we each have? How are we going to pay each other? And if we need to make more money, how are we going to do that? So on and so forth. Yeah.
And so between the call, what is it do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also gone this weekend for like 4 days. But I can. Yeah, I know. But that's what I was going to say, is that I can get a template from Josh. I can transfer the already existing document into that template and then share the template with you guys for continued expansion. Like,
yeah, if you could put that straight into the Notion, create a new page in the Notion.
Master plan development.
Master plan development, and even maybe just a straight copy paste of that document from last week, where we went through the values and the collective values.
Yeah, you know, by the way, for that document, is there a reason you put it in Google Doc rather than in Notion directly?
No, it was just my subconscious. We were on the middle of a call and I just created a Google Doc and started typing.
It's okay, just
yeah. But I can easily copy paste it into Notion. Notion is a new thing for me, so my subconscious mind doesn't jump into Notion.
If you download the desktop client for Notion, it makes it a lot smoother and easier, if you prefer.
The app?
The app, yeah, or the desktop client.
Yeah, for sure. And I can just copy paste what's in the Google Doc into a Notion board, because there's headers and everything in Notion as well. And then that can just be a line in the page that's next to the template as well. So we can reference the template if we want, but then have another one where we're filling in the blanks.
Yep.
So yeah, cool. Then that'll exist. And I think in between now and next call, it would benefit all of us to get into that and get like as familiar as possible with what the master plan template looks like, what information we do have, what information we don't have. And then in that reviewing process, if things come to you, put them into the rough draft master plan.
Cool.
Okay, I'm gonna go to CrossFit, guys. So
yep,
we'll start soon.
Done.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, pretty excited about all that's happening. We have some in-person developments in Bali with some the same people are pretty cool too.
Nice, cool. All right, gents. Thank you again. Another great session, and I'll catch you guys next week.
All right. See you guys.
Ciao, guys.